Hey, Imago Day Academy families. Happy September to you all. I hope you guys are doing great. Just wanted to pop in with a little bit of encouragement for you on your homeschool journey. So the clip that you're going to listen to today was actually recorded back in March of 2022. During the time, my oldest was about 6 years old. My middle baby was about 4 years old. And my baby was about 5 months old. And the time that this was recorded, I was actually in the middle of doing dishes and some other household chores. I always find it interesting that times when I'm doing like day-to-day tasks, the Lord will drop a nugget of encouragement onto my heart to just jot down or record. And so this is just one of those clips that I'm sharing with you today where that exact thing happened. Just in the middle of doing my day-to-day chores, the Lord was just speaking to my heart about homeschooling and serving my family, and the gains that you get from homeschooling. And so my encouragement to you today is to be encouraged by what's shared, to see the gains that we all get when we make the decision to homeschool our children, and the benefit that homeschool brings our children and our family all together in the long run. You know, a lot of times when people talk about homeschooling or they ask you questions about homeschooling, they tend to focus on what they feel like your child is missing out on because they're homeschooled. You know, the socialization, being around other kids, or sports or other things like that, which honestly, your kid can still do those things with homeschooling. But the point I'm trying to make is they always talk about what your kid is missing out on, but they hardly ever talk about what your kid is getting from homeschool. What I like to think about when I'm homeschooling my children, what they get is they get the opportunity to avoid unnecessary peer issues that students have to deal with when they go to public school. You know, fitting in, what other people think about them, what people say about them, all those things that cause issues that people are still working through, even in their adulthood, trying to get over, you know, having teachers that don't really care much about them, or whatever the negative experiences are. And this is not to downplay public school or anything like that, because like I always say, I'm a product of public school myself. But the reality is, when we talk about homeschooling, we shouldn't always think about what our child is missing out on, but what our child is gaining. By instructing our children, we are filtering the things that they are exposed to. There are going to be certain things that they're not going to have to go through or struggle with that someone going to public school may have to. And that's a blessing, because shielding and guarding your children from life struggles that are unnecessary, that's a blessing. You know, not having to worry about overcoming someone picking on them all year or saying negative things to them. You know, not saying those things are not going to happen to them in other arenas, but sometimes interactions with other peers or other people in general are sometimes unnecessary or can be avoided if we're in different environments. And so that's what homeschool allows us to do. It allows us to also give our children to exposure of things that interest them that they may not get to do while they're in school. You know, they have to kind of stay in a linear pattern with what the rest of the class is doing, or, you know, whatever their teacher wants them to do. They kind of have to stay in step or in tune with that. Whereas with homeschooling, you can tailor activities according to your child's interests so they can thrive. So that's just only two of the benefits that I see from homeschooling. There are so many more. But as a parent, I get to not only raise my child, but educate my child as well with the Word of God, with educational resources that are going to help them and guide them into fulfilling the plans and the purposes that God has for their lives. And so when people question you about homeschooling and they talk about what your child is missing out on, remind them of what your child is getting. And I also think about when it comes to the Word of God and how God sets boundaries and things for us. We always think about, oh God, what we don't get to do. Oh man, I can't do this, or I'm going to miss out on this. You know, oh man, I got to follow this rule. And following this rule, I miss out on this. But actually, guidelines and rules and boundaries create a safe area to be free in. And that's what I like to think about with homeschooling. You're creating a safe area for your child to be in, to thrive and to be all that God's created them to be. You know, you get to see the positives and the weaknesses about your child and their strengths, and you get to rear them and guard them and direct them in the way that they should go. You get to teach them. You get a firsthand look and a front row seat into your child and how they learn, how they progress, how they process things, insight into their character, so you can groom them to be all that God has called them to be. So the next time somebody says something to you about homeschooling and what you're missing out on by homeschooling your child, remind them or tell them about everything that your child and you as a parent are actually gaining by homeschooling your child. And remember that the Lord even gives us boundaries to live within, not to keep us confined, but so that we can thrive. So have that mindset when you're homeschooling your children. I have this environment for them to thrive, not to confine them, not to shelter them, not to clip their wings. I want to prepare them so that they can soar and excel when they do get out into the real world, and giving them real life and real world experiences. And another note, people think that, you know, being in a public school environment is actually real world. Well, honestly, it's not. You're around other people. That's the real world part of it. But in life, we don't all matriculate in the same order. We don't all go to the same level or experiences in life like we do in grade school. And so what sometimes public school does is set up a false reality of expectation of how life is going to go. You know, you think about your classmates. You went through kindergarten all the way to 12th grade together, right? And then after high school, you're all looking at each other like, okay, what are we going to do next? You know, some people try to go to college and that's not for them. Some people try to get into the workforce and they have a hard time finding a job because that is life. We all move and develop and grow at our own paces. And that's just a reality. So we all, you know, marry or have children at different times, whatever it is. Everybody's life is different, but it seems like we don't get to recognize that until we get out of school. So with homeschooling, you get to expose your child to reality. You know, if they have siblings, they can see that, oh, my brother and sister may progress faster in this and I may progress faster in that, and that's okay. Those differences are okay, and they make us who we are. And so we can set up a pathway for our child to excel based on who they are and how they progress and grow without the unnecessary competition or feeling like we have to keep up or feeling like we have to do this. And that's not to say that homeschooling doesn't have to have structure or need structure, because I believe that it does. We need some type of structure to thrive in environments. But it eliminates that false reality that we all progress and we all grow at the same time. So just an encouragement to you as homeschool families. Continue to do what you do. Be led by the Lord. Know that He's going to strengthen you. He's going to grace you. And homeschooling is definitely a venture where you have to depend on the Lord. And if you know God the way I do, He loves to put us in situations where we have to totally 100% depend on Him. Not so that we can fail, but so that we can know that we can do nothing and be nothing without Him. So be encouraged. Keep homeschooling. We love you guys, and we're always here to support you along your journey.